You will be inside of us now. The words echo through the shuttle's comm system, sending a chill down Captain Alexander Holmes's spine. He glances at his crew, their faces a mix of confusion and apprehension. The Odysseus hangs in orbit above Nasat Prime, its mission of first contact taking an unexpected turn. The shuttle descends through the alien atmosphere, a swarm of small, colorful creatures suddenly engulfing the vessel. They coat the exterior with a shimmering, pheromone-rich substance. Holmes watches through the viewscreen, his seasoned explorer's instincts on high alert. As they touch down on the landing pad, Holmes takes a deep breath. The airlock hisses open, revealing a group of Nasat officials waiting to greet them. His eyes widen as he steps out, taking in the sight before him. The Nasat delegation consists entirely of females, their iridescent skin glistening in the alien sunlight. At the forefront stands Una, her large, mesmerizing eyes fixed on Holmes. The captain notices an unmistakable tension in the air, a palpable energy radiating from the aliens. Una steps forward, her voice carrying a hint of urgency. "Welcome to Nasat Prime, Captain Holmes. Your arrival is fortuitous and complicated." Holmes furrows his brow. "Complicated? How so?" Una's gaze intensifies. "You've arrived during our mating season. The pheromones coating your shuttle have marked you as potential mates." The human crew exchanges worried glances. Holmes maintains his composure, years of diplomatic training kicking in. "I see. And what does this mean for our mission?" Una gestures to the agitated females around her. "Our population is dwindling. We desperately need new genetic material. The Council proposes an immediate mating arrangement with your crew." Holmes's mind races, weighing the diplomatic implications against the safety of his team. "That's quite a proposition, Una. We'll need time to discuss." "Time is a luxury we don't have," Una interrupts, her voice tinged with desperation. "Our biological drive is overwhelming. We can't control it much longer." The tension among the Nasat females escalates, their movements becoming more erratic. Holmes realizes the situation is rapidly spiraling out of control. Una leans in close, her alien features inches from Holmes's face. "There's more you need to understand. Our reproduction process is unique. When we mate, the male's consciousness is temporarily absorbed into the female's body." Holmes's eyes widen in shock. "Absorbed? You mean—" "Yes." Una nods, her eyes gleaming. "You will be inside of us now." Literally. The revelation sends shockwaves through the human crew. Holmes feels the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The success of their mission, the safety of his team, and the potential for a groundbreaking alliance all hang in the balance. As the Nasat females begin to close in, their biological imperative driving them forward, Holmes knows he must make a decision. The alien mating frenzy intensifies around them, the air thick with pheromones and tension. In this moment, faced with the unknown dangers of alien reproduction and the pressing need for diplomacy, Captain Alexander Holmes stands at the precipice of a choice that will shape the future of human-Nasat relations. The fate of two species rests in his hands, as the primal forces of alien biology threaten to overwhelm them all. Captain Holmes took a deep breath, his mind racing as he processed Una's revelation. The alien mating frenzy intensified around them, but he knew he had to act quickly to defuse the situation. "Una," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I understand the urgency of your situation, but we can't rush into this. Our mission here is about forging understanding between our species. Perhaps we can find a compromise that satisfies both our needs." Una's large eyes blinked rapidly, her iridescent skin pulsing with terrifying energy. "What do you propose, Captain?" "A cultural exchange," Holmes suggested, gesturing to his crew. "We learn about each other, share our knowledge and customs. It could help us build trust and find common ground." The Nasat females murmured among themselves, their agitation slowly subsiding. Una considered the proposal, her antennae twitching thoughtfully. "And what of our biological imperative?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. Holmes nodded, acknowledging the issue. "We could participate in a modified version of your mating ritual, something that satisfies your needs without fully committing to the absorption process. After a tense moment, Yuna turned to confer with the other Nasat officials. The human crew exchanged nervous glances, acutely aware of the pheromones still clinging to their skin. Finally, Yuna faced Holmes again. "We accept your proposal, Captain, but be warned, the effects of our pheromones are potent. Your crew may find it challenging to resist our allure." Holmes nodded, relief washing over him. "Understood. We'll do our best to maintain professionalism." The cultural exchange began with a tour of the Nasat capital. The human delegation marveled at the organic architecture, structures that seemed to pulse with life. Yuna led the group, her movements graceful and fluid. As they walked, Holmes noticed Yuna's frequent proximity to him. Her arm would brush against his, sending shivers through his body. When their eyes met, he felt a pull that went beyond mere physical attraction. In a vast laboratory, Nasat scientists explained more about their reproductive process. "The symbiotic joining during mating is temporary," one researcher clarified. "The male consciousness returns to its original body after conception." This information eased some of the crew's concerns, but raised new questions about potential long-term effects of interspecies breeding. As night fell, the modified mating ritual began with a ceremonial feast. The air was thick with the scent of exotic foods and subtle aphrodisiacs. Holmes felt his inhibitions loosening as he sampled the alien delicacies. The feast transitioned into a sensual dance, Nasat females demonstrating incredible flexibility. Holmes found himself paired with Yuna, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization. The combination of pheromones, aphrodisiacs, and the alien's natural grace was intoxicating. Around him, Holmes saw his crew members engaging in increasingly intimate activities with their Nasat partners. He struggled to maintain his composure, but Yuna's presence was overwhelming. Just as the ritual reached its peak, a shrill alarm cut through the sensual haze. The doors burst open, revealing a stern-faced Nasat male. "Yuna!" he shouted. "We have an emergency!" Yuna reluctantly pulled away from Holmes. "What is it, Kral?" The Nasat defense minister's face was grim. "The Zorgax have entered our system. They'll be within striking distance within hours." The name sent a ripple of fear through the Nasat crowd. Holmes stepped forward, his diplomatic instincts kicking in despite the lingering effects of the aphrodisiacs. "Who are the Zorgax?" he asked. Kral turned to him, eyes narrowing. "A hostile race known for destroying civilizations that stand in the way of their expansion, and now they're here." Holmes exchanged a look with Yuna, seeing the fear in her eyes. He made a split-second decision. "The Odysseus is in orbit," he said. "We have advanced weapons and shielding technology. We can help defend Nasat Prime." Yuna's expression shifted from fear to hope. "You would do that for us?" Holmes nodded firmly. "We came here to forge an alliance. What better way to start than by standing together against a common enemy?" Kral seemed skeptical, but Yuna stepped in. "We accept your offer, Captain Holmes. We'll need to coordinate our defenses immediately." As the humans and Nasat rushed to prepare for the impending attack, Holmes found himself working closely with Yuna. They pored over star charts and defense plans, their bodies constantly in close proximity. The sexual tension between them hadn't dissipated. If anything, it had intensified. Every accidental touch sent electricity through Holmes's body. He caught Yuna stealing glances at him, her alien features softening when their eyes met. In the command center, Holmes and Yuna stood side by side, watching as the first Zorgax ships appeared on the long-range scanners. Their hands brushed against each other, lingering for a moment. "Are you ready for this, Captain?" Yuna asked, her voice low and intimate despite the crisis unfolding around them. Holmes met her gaze, seeing not just an alien diplomat, but a potential partner in more ways than one. "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied, his voice husky with emotion and anticipation. As the Zorgax fleet drew closer, the newly formed human-Nasat alliance prepared to face their first true test. The fate of both species hung in the balance, along with the possibility of a deep interstellar connection that neither Holmes nor Yuna had anticipated when this mission began. As the Zorgax fleet drew closer, the newly formed human-Nasat alliance prepared to face their first true test. Captain Holmes and Yuna wasted no time in establishing a joint command center. their previous intimacy now channeled into a laser-focused purpose to defend Nasat Prime. "We need to integrate our systems," Holmes said, his fingers flying over a holographic display. "The Odysseus's targeting algorithms can enhance your planetary defenses." Una nodded, her iridescent skin pulsing with nervous energy. "Our technicians are standing by. We'll link the ground-based arrays to your ship's combat AI." As they worked, the first wave of Zorgak's ships entered the upper atmosphere. The command center erupted into a flurry of activity, with humans and Nasat working side by side, their earlier sexual tension replaced by a shared purpose. "Multiple bogies on approach," called out Lieutenant Chen from her station. "Energy signatures indicate heavy weaponry." Holmes's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. "Odysseus, this is Holmes. Prepare to launch long-range missiles on my mark." The ship's AI acknowledged the command, its synthesized voice calm amidst the chaos. On the main screen, they watched as the Zorgak ships began their bombardment, streaks of deadly energy lancing towards the planet's surface. "Now!" Holmes shouted. The Odysseus unleashed its arsenal, a swarm of advanced missiles streaking towards the invaders. Simultaneously, Una activated the Nasat's ground-based laser arrays. The combined firepower caught the Zorgaks off guard, their formation breaking apart as several ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. "Direct hits confirmed," Chen reported, a hint of excitement in her voice. "The Zorgaks are retreating to regroup." A cheer went up from the assembled defenders, but Holmes and Una remained focused. They knew this was only the beginning. In the brief lull that followed, Una pulled Holmes aside, her large eyes filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. "Captain, there's something you need to know. We have a weapon that could turn the tide of this battle." Holmes raised an eyebrow. "Why didn't you mention this earlier?" Una's antenna twitched nervously. "It's complicated. The Nexus cannon is powerful enough to destroy entire fleets, but it requires a symbiotic link to operate. We've never found a compatible species before, but given our unexpected biological affinity..." Understanding dawned on Holmes's face. "You think a human could form this link?" Una nodded. "More specifically, I believe you could, Captain. Our earlier interaction suggests a high level of compatibility." Holmes felt a rush of conflicting emotions, excitement at the prospect of such a powerful weapon, concern over the unknown risks, and a lingering attraction to Una that he couldn't quite shake. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the command center. "Massive energy spike detected," Chen shouted. "They're launching a ground invasion." The tactical display lit up with thousands of new signals as Zorgak's troops teleported onto the planet's surface. Holmes and Una exchanged a look of unwavering dedication. "We don't have a choice," Holmes said. "Show me this Nexus cannon." Una led Holmes and a small team to a secure underground facility. As they descended, the sounds of battle grew more distant, replaced by the hum of advanced machinery. In the heart of the facility, Holmes saw a massive crystalline structure pulsing with energy. Nasat scientists hurried around the room, making last-minute preparations. "The linking process is similar to our mating ritual," Una explained, her voice low and intimate despite the urgency of the situation. "Our consciousnesses will merge temporarily, allowing us to channel the energy needed to fire the cannon." Holmes nodded, his heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and fear. "Let's do this." They lay down on a raised platform beneath the crystal structure. As the scientists activated the linking process, Holmes felt Una's body press against his. A soft glow emanated from their skin, growing brighter as their forms began to blur together. Suddenly, Holmes's mind exploded with alien sensations. He saw flashes of Una's memories, the beauty of Nasat Prime's crystal forests, the joy of communal spawning, the fear as their population dwindled. Simultaneously, Una experienced the vastness of space through Holmes's eyes, the thrill of first contact, and the complexity of human emotions. Their merged consciousness reached out to the Nexus cannon, feeling its immense power. Above ground, the human crew and Nasat defenders fought desperately against the Zorgak's invaders, buying time for the weapon to charge. Energy surged through Holmes and Una's joined bodies, lifting them off the platform. The Nexus cannon fired, releasing a blinding beam of light that cut through the atmosphere and engulfed the Zorgax fleet in orbit. Holmes, Una watched through the cannon's sensors as Zorgax ships disintegrated one by one. The strain on their merged form intensified, threatening to tear them apart at a molecular level. They pushed through the pain, maintaining the beam until the last enemy ship exploded in a spectacular fireball. As the cannon's energy faded, Holmes and Una collapsed to the ground, their bodies separating but still connected by tendrils of residual energy. Medical teams rushed to their aid, unsure of how to treat their unique condition. But there was no time to rest. Alarms blared once again as the facility's defenses were breached. A small group of Zorgax warriors, led by a towering figure in ornate armor, fought their way towards the chamber. "Vexcar," Una whispered weakly, recognizing the Zorgax commander. Holmes tried to stand, but his body refused to respond. He watched helplessly as Vexcar and his troops burst into the room, their alien weapons trained on the vulnerable pair. "So," Vexcar's voice grated like metal on stone, "these are the beings who dared to challenge the might of the Zorgax Empire." His cold eyes swept over Holmes and Una, then fixed on the Nexus cannon. "Secure the weapon, and bring me these two. Their secrets will be ours." As Zorgax soldiers advanced on their position, Holmes's mind raced, searching for a way out. The residual link with Una pulsed in his consciousness, hinting at untapped potential. With their bodies still too weak to fight, they would need to find another way to resist, and quickly, and resist capture. But before Holmes could act, a searing pain shot through his body, paralyzing him. He saw Una collapse beside him, her iridescent skin dulling as she lost consciousness. Vexacar loomed over them, a cruel smile twisting his alien features. "Fascinating," he hissed, studying the energy still crackling between Holmes and Una. "Secure them. We depart immediately." Holmes felt rough hands grab him, his weakened body unable to resist. The world spun as a Zorgax soldier activated a personal teleportation device. In a flash of blinding light, the chamber vanished, replaced by the sterile interior of an alien base. The abrupt change in surroundings disoriented Holmes. He caught a glimpse of Una being dragged away before a door slammed shut, cutting off his view. The Zorgax guards shoved him into a small cell, its walls pulsing with an energy field that made his skin tingle uncomfortably. As the hours passed, Holmes's strength slowly returned. He paced the confines of his cell, searching for weaknesses, but found none. The energy field repelled any attempt to touch the walls or door. Suddenly, a wave of fear washed over him, fear that wasn't his own. Holmes gasped, realizing he could sense Una's emotions. Their symbiotic link had created a psychic bond, bridging the distance between their cells. "Una," he whispered, focusing on the connection. "Can you hear me?" A faint reply echoed in his mind. "Holmes, I'm here. Are you hurt?" "No, I'm okay. Do you know where they're keeping you?" Before Una could respond, the cell door slid open. Vexacar entered, flanked by two guards and a Zorgax scientist. The commander's cold eyes studied Holmes with predatory intensity. "Your ability to channel the Nexus cannon's power is unprecedented," Vexacar said, his voice a grating whisper. "You will tell us how you achieved this." Holmes met the alien's gaze defiantly. "Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you." Vexacar's expression didn't change. "Then we'll find out another way." The scientist stepped forward, pressing a device against Holmes' neck. Pain exploded through his body, every nerve on fire. Holmes gritted his teeth, refusing to cry out. Through the haze of agony, he felt a surge of concern from Una. Their shared pain intensified the bond between them, images flashing through Holmes's mind, glimpses of the base's layout, overheard conversations between guards. The torture continued for what felt like hours. When it finally stopped, Holmes slumped to the floor, his body trembling from exhaustion and residual pain. Vexacar loomed over him. "Impressive resilience, human. But everyone breaks eventually." As the Zorgax left, Holmes closed his eyes, focusing on the connection with Una. He sent a mental image of what he'd seen, the cell block layout, the guard rotations. Her response came quickly, a flood of information about the base's power systems and security protocols. Days passed in a blur of interrogations and brief respites. Holmes lost track of time, but the bond with Una grew stronger. They shared memories, fears, and a growing sense of intimacy that transcended their physical separation. During one interrogation session, Holmes overheard a conversation between Vexcar and the scientist. "The female's biology is more compatible," the scientist said. "If we force a symbiotic link with her, we might be able to access the Nexus cannon's power directly." Vexcar nodded. "Prepare for the procedure. I'll do it myself." Panic surged through Holmes. He sent a mental warning to Una, feeling her fear spike in response. They had to act now. That night, as a guard entered with his meager ration of food, Holmes was ready. He had spent hours gathering his strength, drawing on the residual energy from his link with Una. As the energy field deactivated, Holmes lunged forward, catching the guard off guard. The struggle was brief but intense. Holmes's weakened state made the fight harder than it should have been, but desperation lent him strength. He managed to overpower the guard, knocking him unconscious and seizing his weapon and communication device. Heart pounding, Holmes stepped into the corridor. Alarms blared, and he could hear the sound of approaching footsteps. He reached out to Una through their link. "I'm out. Can you buy me some time?" Una's response came as a wave of drive. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Taking advantage of the confusion, Holmes moved swiftly through the base. He used the knowledge gained from Una to navigate the labyrinthine corridors, avoiding patrols and making his way toward her cell. As he rounded a corner, he came face to face with a squad of Zorg soldiers. Holmes raised the stolen weapon, but before he could fire, the floor beneath the aliens' feet suddenly gave way. They fell, screaming, into a lower level. "Nice trick," Holmes sent through their link, feeling Una's satisfaction in response. He was close now. Just one more security door stood between him and Una. Holmes raised the weapon, preparing to blast the lock, when a familiar voice froze him in place. "I must admit I'm impressed," Vexcar said, stepping out of the shadows. "But your escape ends here." Holmes turned, finding himself face to face with the Zorg's commander. Behind Vexcar, a group of elite soldiers aimed their weapons at him. The moment stretched, taut with tension, as Holmes realized he was out of options. But before anyone could make a move, the entire base shook with a massive explosion. Alarms screamed, and a new voice cut through the chaos over the base's communication system. "Attention, Zorgax forces. This is First Officer Sarah Chen of the starship Odysseus. Surrender immediately or face total annihilation." Holmes's eyes widened in surprise. The cavalry had arrived, but the battle was far from finished. As Vexcar snarled orders to his troops, Holmes knew he had to reach Una before it was too late. The rescue mission had begun, but the most dangerous part of their ordeal still lay ahead. Holmes knew he had to act fast. In that moment of chaos, Holmes tapped into the residual energy from his link with Una. A surge of power coursed through his body, heightening his senses and reflexes. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, catching Vexcar off guard. The Zorgax commander stumbled backward, surprise flickering across his alien features. Holmes pressed his advantage, unleashing a flurry of strikes that sent Vexcar reeling. The elite soldiers, momentarily stunned by the human's unexpected display of strength, hesitated to fire. Seizing the opportunity, Holmes spun around and blasted the security door's lock with his stolen weapon. The door slid open, revealing Una strapped to a modified version of the Nexus cannon technology. Her iridescent skin pulsed with an eerie glow, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and urgency. "Holmes!" she called out telepathically. "Hurry!" As Holmes rushed to free Una, Vexcar recovered and barked orders to his troops. The narrow corridor erupted into chaos as energy blasts ricocheted off the walls. Holmes ducked and weaved, using his enhanced abilities to evade the barrage while working to release Una's restraints. The moment Una was free, she reached out and touched Holmes's arm. A jolt of energy passed between them, amplifying their shared power. Together they turned to face the advancing Zorgax forces. Una's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she focused her mind on the base's systems. Alarms blared, and the lights in the corridor began to flicker erratically. The Zorgak soldiers' weapons malfunctioned, emitting sparks and smoke. Taking advantage of the confusion, Holmes and Una fought their way through the corridor. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, each anticipating the other's actions through their mental link. They moved as one, a blur of human and Nasat forms weaving through the chaos. As they rounded a corner, they encountered a group of Zorgaks wearing lab coats instead of armor. One of them, a tall, gaunt figure with piercing green eyes, stepped forward with raised hands. "Wait," the alien called out. "I'm Krell, chief scientist. We want to help you escape." Holmes hesitated, his weapon trained on Krell. Through their link, he felt Una's cautious curiosity. "Why should we trust you?" Holmes demanded. Krell's eyes darted nervously to his companions. "Vexkar's actions have become increasingly erratic and dangerous. We fear he'll destroy everything in his quest for power. If you help us defect, we'll guide you to safety and share our knowledge of Zorgak's technology." Holmes and Una exchanged a quick glance, a silent conversation passing between them in an instant. They both recognized the strategic value of such an alliance. "Lead the way," Holmes said, lowering his weapon slightly. "But know that we'll be watching your every move." Krell nodded and gestured for them to follow. The small group moved swiftly through the winding corridors of the base, avoiding patrols and navigating through areas where Una had caused system malfunctions. As they progressed, the sounds of battle grew louder. Explosions shook the structure, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. Through their link, Holmes and Una sensed the approach of familiar minds. The rescue team, led by First Officer Chen, was closing in. Suddenly, a massive tremor rocked the base. Krell stumbled, his eyes wide with fear. "They've breached the main reactor. We need to get to the emergency teleportation chamber immediately." The group broke into a run, racing against time as the base began to crumble around them. They burst into a large circular room filled with advanced technology. Krell and his fellow scientists scrambled to activate the teleportation device. Just as the machine hummed to life, Vexakar and a squad of elite guards stormed into the chamber. The Zorgak's commander's eyes blazed with fury as he took in the scene before him. "Traitors!" he roared, raising his weapon. Energy blasts filled the air as both sides opened fire. Holmes and Una moved in perfect unison, their enhanced abilities allowing them to dodge the deadly beams while returning fire. Krell and his team worked frantically to complete the teleportation sequence. In the midst of the firefight, a stray blast struck the teleportation controls. The machine's hum rose to a deafening pitch, and arcs of energy began to crackle across its surface. "It's overloading," Krell shouted over the din. "The destination coordinates are scrambled." Holmes grabbed Una's hand, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent understanding. Whatever happened, they would face it together. The teleportation field expanded, enveloping Holmes, Una, and the Zorgak scientists. Vexakar lunged forward, his clawed hand reaching for them, as the world dissolved into a blinding white light. When the light faded, Holmes found himself lying on a smooth, crystalline surface. He blinked, his eyes adjusting to the soft, purple-tinged light that seemed to emanate from the very air around him. Beside him, Una stirred, her iridescent skin shimmering in the alien glow. As they sat up, taking in their surroundings, Holmes realized with a start where they were. The graceful spires of crystal, the humming energy in the air, the very feel of the ground beneath them. It could only be one place. "Nasat Prime," Una whispered, her voice filled with awe and disbelief. They had escaped the Zorgak's base, but their journey was far from finished. As curious Nasat began to gather around them, Holmes and Una rose to their feet, their hands still clasped tightly together. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one, a union of human and Nasat, forged in the crucible of conflict and bound by a connection deeper than either species had ever known. The crystalline spires of Nasat Prime stretched towards the violet sky, their surfaces shimmering with an otherworldly luminescence that captivated Holmes's human eyes. As the gathered Nasat examined them with a mixture of curiosity and caution, Holmes felt a gentle squeeze from Una's hand. Through their link, he sensed her conflicting emotions, joy at being home, concern for their safety, and an underlying anxiety about what would happen next. Before they could fully process their surroundings, a group of Nasat officials approached, their iridescent skin pulsing with patterns that Holmes now recognized as a sign of agitation and urgency. "You must come with us immediately," one of the officials said, her voice resonating in their minds. "The High Council has convened an emergency session." As they were escorted through the twisting corridors of the Nasat governmental complex, Holmes and Una exchanged worried glances. Their physical contact remained constant, a low hum of energy passing between them. The council chamber was a vast circular room with tiered seating surrounding a central platform. Elder Nasat females, their skin patterns more intricate and luminous than any Holmes had seen before, regarded them with piercing gazes. "Captain Alexander Holmes and Una," the lead counselor's voice echoed in their minds. "Your return and the nature of your connection has profound implications for both our species." Over the next several hours, Holmes and Una recounted their experiences, from their initial capture by the Zorgax to their daring escape. The council listened intently, their skin patterns shifting in response to each new revelation. As they finished their tale, the lead counselor leaned forward. "We propose to create a specialized task force of human Nasat pairs, modeled after your symbiotic link. This could be our best defense against future Zorgax aggression." Before Holmes could respond, a commotion at the chamber's entrance drew everyone's attention. First Officer Sarah Chen strode in, her uniform slightly disheveled from what had clearly been a rushed journey. "Captain Holmes," she said, her voice a mixture of relief and confusion as she took in the scene before her. "We've been searching for you since the Zorgax base was destroyed." Holmes nodded, acutely aware of the faint glow emanating from his and Una's joined hands. "It's good to see you, Sarah. We have a lot to discuss." In the days that followed, Holmes and Una found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Nasat scientists, led by the brilliant Dr. Zira, subjected them to a battery of tests, probing the limits of their enhanced abilities. In one particularly intense session, Holmes and Una stood at opposite ends of a vast chamber. As they slowly increased the distance between them, their mental link remained strong, allowing them to share thoughts and sensations across an ever-growing expanse. "Remarkable," Dr. Zira murmured, her skin pulsing with excitement. "The neural pathways have been fundamentally altered. It's as if your minds exist in a shared space, independent of physical proximity." As news of their abilities spread, Holmes sensed a growing undercurrent of tension. Not everyone viewed the prospect of human-Nasat symbiosis with enthusiasm. During a joint briefing with Nasat and human officials, a conservative Nasat named Counselor Vex voiced his concerns. "We cannot rush headlong into this," Vex argued, his skin patterns sharp and agitated. "The long-term consequences of such intimate interspecies bonding are unknown. We risk losing the very essence of what makes us Nasat." Similar concerns echoed from the human side. As they left the briefing, Holmes overheard two crew members from the Odysseus engaged in a heated discussion. "It's unnatural," one of them muttered. "How long before we're more Nasat than human?" Despite the growing opposition, plans for the Nexus Academy moved forward rapidly. A sprawling complex was constructed on the outskirts of the Nasat capital, its architecture a blend of human and Nasat design. As volunteers from both species began to arrive, Holmes and Una found themselves thrust into the role of instructors and mentors. The first attempts at replicating their symbiotic link proved challenging. Many pairs struggled to establish even the most basic mental connection, while others experienced severe physical reactions. Holmes watched with a mixture of concern and frustration as a human volunteer was rushed to the medical bay, his body convulsing from a failed bonding attempt. "We're missing something," Una said, her thoughts flowing seamlessly into Holmes's mind. "Our bond wasn't forced or manufactured. It grew naturally under extreme circumstances." Holmes nodded, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe we need to focus less on the physical and more on the emotional and mental aspects of the connection." They revised their training approach, emphasizing trust-building exercises and shared experiences over attempts at forced neural links. Slowly, progress began to emerge. A young human engineer and her Nasat partner successfully shared a simple thought. A veteran soldier found he could sense his Nasat counterpart's emotions. As the training program evolved, Holmes and Yuna's own bond continued to deepen. Each day brought new discoveries, their shared consciousness expanding in ways neither had thought possible. They found they could relive each other's memories with perfect clarity, experiencing moments from their vastly different lives as if they had lived them themselves. One evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the shimmering expanse of the Nasat capital, Holmes turned to Yuna. The violet light of dusk played across her iridescent skin, and he felt a surge of emotion that transcended any simple human definition of love. "I never imagined anything like this was possible," he said softly, his words carrying layers of meaning through their link. Yuna's response came not in words, but in a flood of shared sensation. The wonder of stellar nurseries seen through Nasat eyes, the exhilaration of a first space flight, the depth of connection to a vast, interlinked society. Holmes gasped at the beauty and alienness of it all. Their moment of intimacy was interrupted by an urgent alert. A Nasat communication officer approached, his skin pulsing with alarm. "Captain Holmes, Yuna," he said, his mental voice taut with tension. "We've detected a massive energy signature at the edge of our system. Long-range scans confirm our worst fears. The Zorgax have returned, and in far greater numbers than before." Holmes felt a chill run down his spine, even as Yuna's tenacity flowed through their link. They had escaped the Zorgax once, but now the enemy was bringing the fight to them. As alarms began to sound across the capital, Holmes knew that the true test of human Nasat cooperation was about to begin. The distant flashes of the approaching Zorgax fleet illuminated the night sky, casting an eerie glow over the crystalline spires of Nasat Prime. Holmes and Yuna sprang into action, their minds working in perfect synchronization as they assessed the situation. Through their enhanced link, they processed tactical data at an unprecedented speed, formulating strategies and countermeasures faster than any individual could hope to achieve. "We need to mobilize our defenses immediately," Holmes communicated mentally to Yuna. She nodded, her skin pulsing with patterns of persistence and urgency. They rushed to the Nasat High Council chamber, where human and Nasat leaders had already gathered. The room buzzed with nervous energy as Holmes and Yuna entered. "The Zorgax fleet is larger than we anticipated," Holmes announced, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We estimate they'll reach our outer defenses within 6 hours." Elder Zira, her luminescent skin flickering with complex patterns, stepped forward. "We've made a breakthrough in understanding your symbiotic link," she said, her mental voice resonating with excitement despite the looming threat. "The residual energy from the Nexus cannon in your bodies acts as a catalyst. We believe we can replicate this effect in other human Nasat pairs." "How quickly can we implement this?" Yuna asked, her thoughts intertwining with Holmes's as they considered the implications. "We've already begun modifying the training protocols at Nexus Academy," Zira replied. "With your permission, we'd like to accelerate the program immediately." The council chamber erupted in a flurry of activity as leaders from both species coordinated their efforts. Holmes and Yuna found themselves at the center of it all, their unique abilities making them invaluable in processing information and making split-second decisions. As the hours ticked by, reports flooded in from Nexus Academy. The modified symbiosis process was yielding results far beyond their initial expectations. Human Nasat pairs were achieving deeper connections in a fraction of the time it had taken Holmes and Yuna. "We're seeing unprecedented levels of neural synchronization," Dr. Chen, the lead human scientist, reported. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "But we're pushing the limits of what we understand. There could be unforeseen consequences." Holmes felt Yuna's concern ripple through their link. "We don't have a choice," he replied, squeezing her hand. "It's our best chance for survival." As the Zorgax fleet entered the outer reaches of the Nasat system, the newly formed symbiotic defense force began to mobilize. Holmes and Yuna boarded the Symbiosis, a sleek vessel that seemed to hum with energy as they approached. The ship's interior was a marvel of human and Nasat engineering. Crystalline interfaces pulsed with light, responding to the mere thoughts of its symbiotic crew. As Holmes and Yuna took their positions at the helm, they felt the ship come alive around them, its systems integrating seamlessly with their shared consciousness. "All defense units, report in," Holmes commanded, his voice echoing through the ship's communication system. One by one, the symbiotic pairs announced their readiness. Each pair piloted a craft designed to harness their unique abilities, forming a fleet unlike anything either species had fielded before. The Zorgax struck with brutal efficiency, their ships swarming towards Nasat Prime and the orbiting Odysseus. The space around the planet erupted in a dazzling display of weapons fire and explosions. Holmes and Una guided the symbiosis through the chaos, their movements fluid and precise. Through their link, they coordinated the efforts of the entire defense fleet, processing vast amounts of tactical data and issuing orders faster than any traditional command structure could manage. The symbiotic defense force proved remarkably effective in the opening stages of the battle. Human Nasat pairs demonstrated reflexes and tactical awareness that caught the Zorgax off guard. Advanced weapon systems, powered by the shared consciousness of their operators, struck with pinpoint accuracy. But the sheer size of the Zorgax fleet began to take its toll. For every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The defenders found themselves slowly pushed back, fighting desperately to protect their homeworld. Suddenly, a piercing pain shot through Holmes and Una's shared consciousness. Around them, other symbiotic pairs cried out in agony. The Zorgax had deployed a new weapon, one that seemed specifically designed to disrupt their neural links. They've been preparing for this, Una realized, her thoughts tinged with fear and anger. They knew about our symbiosis somehow. Holmes gritted his teeth against the pain, forcing himself to focus. "We need to take out their command ship," he said, a plan forming in their shared mind. "If we can eliminate their leadership, we might be able to throw their entire force into disarray." Una's agreement flowed through their link, along with a surge of grit. Together they turned the symbiosis towards the heart of the Zorgax fleet, where a massive vessel loomed ominously. As they approached, their symbiotic link intensified beyond anything they had experienced before. The boundaries between their individual consciousnesses began to blur, their thoughts and memories merging into a single, unified mind. With their newly enhanced abilities, Holmes and Una interfaced directly with the symbiosis's systems. The ship became an extension of their shared being, responding to their thoughts with lightning speed. The Zorgax, recognizing the threat, concentrated their fire on the symbiosis. Energy beams and projectiles filled the space around them, creating a deadly obstacle course. But Holmes and Una, now functioning as a single entity, wove through the barrage with impossible grace. They pushed closer to the Zorgax command ship, the symbiosis's weapons blazing. But as they approached their target, alarms blared throughout their vessel. Multiple systems were failing under the relentless assault. In that moment of crisis, a plan crystallized in their shared mind. It was risky, possibly suicidal, but it might be their only chance to turn the tide of the battle. "All hands, prepare for emergency teleportation," Holmes announced, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. As the symbiosis hurtled towards the Zorgax command ship, Holmes and Una activated the experimental teleportation device. In a blinding flash of light, they vanished from the bridge, moments before their ship crashed into the enemy vessel's hull. When the light faded, Holmes and Una found themselves in the alien corridor of the Zorgax command ship, surrounded by the wreckage of their own vessel. Alarms blared, and the sounds of approaching Zorgax soldiers echoed through the metallic passageways. Their symbiotic link hummed with newfound power, their senses heightened to superhuman levels. As the first wave of Zorgax rounded the corner, Holmes and Una moved as one, their bodies flowing with a grace and strength that seemed impossible. They fought their way deeper into the ship, their goal clear in their shared mind: reach the bridge, eliminate the Zorgax leadership, and end this war once and for all. But as they pressed forward, they knew the real battle was just beginning. The distant flashes of the approaching Zorgax fleet illuminated the night sky, casting an eerie glow over the crystalline spires of Nasat Prime. As Holmes and Una fought their way deeper into the Zorgax command ship, their symbiotic link surged with newfound power. Their movements became a fluid dance of precision and strength, each action perfectly complementing the other. A group of Zorgak's elite warriors rounded the corner, their biomechanical armor gleaming under the harsh ship lights. Without a word spoken between them, Holmes and Una sprang into action. Holmes ducked under a plasma burst, feeling the heat singe his hair as Una simultaneously launched herself over his back. Her iridescent skin pulsed with energy as she struck the lead Zorgak's warrior, her enhanced strength sending him crashing into his comrades. Holmes pivoted, his mind processing tactical data at lightning speed through their shared consciousness. He grabbed a discarded Zorgak's weapon, instinctively understanding its alien mechanisms. With pinpoint accuracy, he disabled the remaining warrior's armor joints, rendering them immobile. "This way," Una communicated mentally, her thoughts tinged with urgency. They sprinted down a twisting corridor, their heightened senses alert for any sign of danger. As they navigated the labyrinthine ship, Holmes felt a flash of concern from Una. Through their link, he saw a vision of Nasat Prime, the symbiotic defense force struggling against the overwhelming Zorgak's fleet. "We need to end this quickly," Holmes thought, feeling Una's agreement pulse through their connection. They skidded to a halt before a massive energy barrier, its shimmering surface blocking their path to what they sensed was the ship's command center. Zorgak's voices echoed from beyond, barking orders in their harsh, clicking language. Holmes and Una's shared mind raced, analyzing the barrier's energy signature. "The power relays," they thought in unison, their eyes darting to the alien circuitry lining the walls. Moving as one, they began to manipulate the ship's systems. Holmes's human intuition melded seamlessly with Una's deep understanding of advanced technology. Their fingers danced across alien interfaces, rerouting power and overloading circuits. The barrier flickered and died with a dying hum. Without hesitation, Holmes and Una burst into the command center. The Zorgak's high command turned in shock, their insectoid features contorting in alarm. A frenzied battle erupted. Holmes and Una moved with impossible speed and coordination, their bodies flowing around energy blasts and striking with devastating accuracy. Una's skin flashed with patterns of warning, allowing Holmes to duck a swing from a massive Zorgak's commander. In return, Holmes used their momentum to flip the alien over his shoulder, sending it crashing into a bank of controls. As they fought, their shared consciousness took in every detail of the room. A central terminal caught their attention, its displays flickering with data streams and tactical information. "Cover me," Holmes communicated, feeling Una's acknowledgement. He dove for the terminal as Una engaged the remaining Zorgak's, her movements a blur of deadly efficiency. Holmes's hands flew over the alien interface, their symbiotic link allowing him to decipher its complexities. Suddenly, a flood of information poured into their shared mind. The Zorgak's homeworld, a dying planet orbiting a fading star. The desperate search for new technologies to save their species. The Nexus cannon, seen as their last hope. They're not just invaders, Una realized, her thoughts tinged with a mix of surprise and empathy. Before they could process this revelation, a new threat emerged. The command center doors burst open, revealing a squad of cybernetically enhanced Zorgak's warriors. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their movements were unnaturally fast and precise. Holmes and Una found themselves pushed to the limit as they engaged these new foes. The cybernetic warriors anticipated their moves with alarming accuracy, countering their symbiotic advantages. In a moment of desperation, Holmes and Una made a silent, shared decision. They delved deeper into their symbiotic link than ever before, pushing past the boundaries of their individual consciousness. The world around them seemed to slow as their minds fully merged. They were no longer Holmes and Una, but a single entity with unparalleled mental and physical abilities. Their perceptions expanded, taking in every minute detail of their surroundings. With this new unified consciousness, they interfaced directly with the Zorgak's ship's neural network. The vessel's systems laid bare before them, a complex web of data and controls that they now understood intuitively. Using their unprecedented access, they broadcast a message to both fleets. "Attention all forces. We have uncovered the truth behind this conflict. The Zorgak's seek the Nexus cannon technology to save their dying world. We propose an immediate ceasefire and offer to adapt our technology to help them, in exchange for lasting peace. The response was immediate and chaotic. Some Zorgax ships powered down their weapons, while others continued their assault. The human Nasat forces were similarly divided, unsure how to respond to this unexpected development. As confusion reigned, the merged Holmes Una entity began systematically disabling weapon systems across the Zorgax fleet, but the strain of maintaining their complete union while controlling the vast network began to take its toll. Pain lanced through their shared consciousness. Their physical forms trembled, and their vision blurred. They could feel their merged minds starting to fragment, threatening to tear apart under the immense pressure. On Nasat Prime, Dr. Zira's instruments detected the massive energy surge from Holmes and Una's complete symbiotic merger. Her luminescent skin pulsed with patterns of alarm and perseverance as she realized the danger they were in. "We need to stabilize their connection," she announced to her team, her mental voice urgent. "Prepare the quantum resonance chamber. We'll use the planet's energy grid to create a stabilizing field." As Zira and her team worked frantically to save Holmes and Una, the battle above Nasat Prime hung in a precarious balance. The fate of both species now rested on whether the ceasefire would hold and whether Holmes and Una could maintain their tenuous control long enough for peace to take root. In the Zorgax command center, the merged entity fought to hold on to their connection, even as they felt it slipping away. Through the haze of pain and disorientation, they clung to a single shared thought, the hope that their sacrifice might forge a path to understanding between their people and the Zorgax. The cybernetic warriors, momentarily stunned by the broadcast, began to advance once more. As Holmes and Una struggled to maintain their merged state and control over the ship's systems, they knew that the next few moments would determine not just their fate, but the future of human, Nasat, and Zorgax alike. As Holmes and Una grappled with the cybernetic warriors, their merged consciousness teetered on the brink of collapse. The strain of maintaining their unified state while controlling the ship's systems threatened to tear their minds apart. Suddenly, a wave of energy washed over them, its soothing resonance easing the pressure on their shared psyche. Their vision cleared, and the pain receded to a dull ache. Through their link, they sensed the source, Dr. Zira's stabilizing field, powered by the principles of the Nexus canon, now enveloping the Zorgax command ship. With renewed focus, Holmes Una turned their attention back to the advancing cybernetic warriors. Their movements, once sluggish from the strain, now flowed with renewed grace and precision. They dodged a volley of energy blasts, their shared mind calculating trajectories and weak points in the Zorgax armor. As they fought, they maintained their control over the ship's systems. An idea formed in their unified consciousness. They accessed the vessel's advanced communication array, broadcasting real-time footage of the command center to both fleets. The images flickered to life on view screens across human, Nasat, and Zorgax ships. The sight of Holmes and Una, their forms shimmering with symbiotic energy, standing amid disabled Zorgax leaders, sent shockwaves through the ranks. On the bridge of the Odysseus, First Officer Sarah Chen watched the feed with a mix of awe and concern. "Stand down," she ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. "Hold positions and cease fire." Some crew members protested. "We have the advantage," argued Tactical Officer Reese. "We should press forward and end this threat once and for all." Chen shook her head, her eyes fixed on the image of Holmes and Una. "No, they've given us a chance for peace. We owe it to them and to ourselves to see this through." Back on the Zorgax command ship, Holmes Una felt the shift in the battle's momentum. More Zorgax vessels powered down their weapons, responding to the display of power and control over their leadership. With the immediate threat diminished, they turned their attention to communication. Their merged mind absorbed and processed the Zorgax language at an astonishing rate, deciphering its complex clicks and vibrations. "We seek peace," they projected in the Zorgax tongue, their voice resonating through the command center. "Your world is in danger. We can help." The Zorgax Supreme Commander, its carapace scarred from countless battles, stepped forward. "How can we trust you?" it clicked, mandibles quivering with suspicion. Holmes Una interfaced with the ship's data banks, projecting images of the Zorgax homeworld onto the main view screen. The planet's surface glowed an angry red, its atmosphere roiling with storms. In the background, their sun loomed ominously large. "Your star expands," Holmes Yuna explained. "It will consume your world within a generation, but together, we can prevent this." They outlined their plan, describing how a modified version of the Nexus cannon could create an energy shield to protect the Zorgak's homeworld. As they spoke, their merged mind worked furiously, combining human ingenuity, Nasat technological expertise, and the newfound knowledge of Zorgak's engineering. The Supreme Commander's compound eyes flickered with a complex array of emotions. "And what do you ask in return?" It clicked cautiously. "Peace," Holmes Yuna replied simply. "An end to this war and a new era of cooperation between our peoples." As discussions progressed, Holmes Yuna felt a strange sensation rippling through their shared form. Dr. Zira's voice echoed in their mind, transmitted through the stabilizing field. "Your physiologies are changing," she explained, her mental voice tinged with excitement and concern. "Your DNA is recombining, creating a hybrid of human and Nasat biology. We're still analyzing the implications, but you may be experiencing new abilities and unknown risks." Even as they processed this information, Holmes Yuna became aware of enhanced sensory input. They could perceive energy flows within the ship's systems with newfound clarity, and the thoughts and emotions of those around them seemed to brush against their consciousness like whispers. They pushed these discoveries aside for the moment, focusing on the task at hand. As negotiations with the Zorgak's leaders continued, they initiated a data exchange, sharing information about their respective technologies. The Zorgaks revealed the workings of their disruptive weapons, while Holmes Yuna offered insights into symbiotic interfaces. Ideas began to flow, sparking discussions of how these technologies could be combined and improved. As word of the ongoing peace talks spread, the mood on Nasat Prime shifted. Dr. Zira's team worked tirelessly, coordinating with human and Zorgak scientists to develop plans for adapting the Nexus cannon. However, not everyone embraced the prospect of peace. On the fringes of the Zorgak's fleet, a group of hardline officers gathered in secret, their communications shielded from detection. "This is weakness," hissed Sub-Commander Vrock, its eyes glowing with impossibly strong rage. "We cannot allow our leaders to betray our people by sharing our technology with these inferior species." Meanwhile, on Nasat Prime, Counselor Vex addressed a growing crowd of supporters. "The changes in Holmes and Yuna prove what I've long suspected," he declared, his skin flashing patterns of warning and fear. "Continued symbiosis threatens the very essence of who we are. We must end this program before it's too late." As these opposing factions gained strength, Holmes Yuna prepared to return to Nasat Prime with a delegation of Zorgak's leaders. They boarded a shuttle, their merged form humming with newfound energy and apprehension. As they approached the planet, alarms blared in the shuttle's cockpit. Energy readings spiked on the sensors, emanating from the surface of Nasat Prime. "Unusual power signatures detected," reported the Zorgak's pilot, its mandibles clicking nervously. "Source unknown. Possible weapon activation?" Holmes Yuna's hybrid mind raced, analyzing the data. They recognized elements of Nasat technology in the energy pattern, but twisted and amplified in ways they had never seen before. "It's Counselor Vex," they realized, their merged voice tight with tension. "He's not just planning resistance, he's preparing for war." As the shuttle descended through Nasat Prime's atmosphere, Holmes Yuna knew that bringing their hard-won peace to fruition would be far more challenging than they had imagined. The true test of their newfound abilities and the strength of the alliance they had forged was about to begin. The true test of their newfound abilities and the strength of the alliance they had forged was about to unfold. As the shuttle pierced through Nasat Prime's atmosphere, the energy readings intensified. Holmes Yuna's hybrid consciousness processed the data at lightning speed, recognizing familiar patterns within the chaotic surge. "It's a modified version of the Nexus cannon," they communicated to the Zorgak's pilot, "but the signature is distorted, amplified beyond its original design." The shuttle touched down on a landing pad near the central government complex. As the hatch opened, Holmes Yuna's enhanced senses were immediately assaulted by a cacophony of sounds and a flurry of activity. Nasat security forces rushed about, their skin patterns flashing urgent warnings. A familiar figure approached, Dr. Zira, her luminescent skin pulsing with concern. Holmes, Yuna, she addressed them, her mental voice tense. Counselor Vex has seized control of the Nexus cannon facility. He's threatening to use it against the Zorgax fleet and expel all humans from Nasat space. The Zorgax delegation, emerging from the shuttle, clicked their mandibles in alarm. Holmes Yuna raised a hand, their merged form emanating a calming aura. We'll handle this, they assured the group. Please, remain here under Dr. Zira's protection. As they made their way towards the Nexus cannon facility, reports flooded in through their neural link. Vex's supporters had taken key members of the Nasat High Council and human diplomatic team hostage. The situation was escalating rapidly. Holmes Yuna's hybrid physiology had become more pronounced during their short journey. Their skin now shimmered with an iridescent sheen, and their movements were fluid, almost liquid. They approached the facility's perimeter, where a group of Vex's loyalists stood guard. Without a word, Holmes Yuna activated their enhanced abilities. Their forms seemed to blur, becoming translucent. They slipped past the guards undetected, their molecular structure temporarily aligning with the facility's walls. Inside, they navigated through a maze of corridors, their merged consciousness mapping out the facility's layout. They encountered small pockets of resistance, Nasat security personnel who had sided with Vex. Each confrontation was brief but intense, with Holmes Yuna using their superior speed and reflexes to incapacitate opponents without causing serious harm. As they neared the central control room, they overheard Vex's voice, tense and agitated. The package is secure, he was saying. Once we neutralize the Zorgax threat, proceed with Phase 2. Holmes Yuna's hybrid mind raced, processing the implications. Vex wasn't acting alone. This was part of a larger conspiracy. They paused, considering their next move. A direct confrontation might escalate the situation further. Instead, they tapped into the facility's communication systems, broadcasting their voice throughout the complex. Counselor Vex, they called out, their merged voice resonating with authority. This is Holmes and Yuna. We request a dialogue. Silence fell over the facility. Then Vex's voice crackled over the intercom. The abominations dare to speak? You are living proof of why this action is necessary. We are proof of evolution, Counselor, Holmes Yuna responded calmly. Of adaptation, the very thing you claim to protect. They continued to move through the facility as they spoke, using their enhanced senses to locate the hostages. Your actions threaten not just the Zorgax, but the future of all our species. The peace we've brokered offers solutions to problems we couldn't solve alone. Vex's response was cut short by a commotion in the background. Holmes Yuna heard shouts and the sound of a scuffle. Taking advantage of the distraction, they burst into the control room. The scene before them was chaotic. Vex stood at the main console, his skin flashing patterns of rage and desperation. Around him, members of his own faction were arguing, some clearly having second thoughts about their actions. Holmes Yuna's gaze fell on the Nexus cannon's power core, now pulsing with an ominous red glow. They knew they had to act fast to prevent disaster. Counselor, they addressed Vex directly, their hybrid form commanding attention. Your concerns about preserving our species are not unfounded. But look at us. We are neither human nor Nasat, yet we are both. We represent a new possibility, one that doesn't require the destruction of others. Vex's skin patterns flickered with uncertainty. You're an anomaly, a mistake. We are the future, Holmes Yuna countered. A future where our strengths are combined, our weaknesses overcome. The Zorgax came here out of desperation, seeking help. By working together, we can save their world and advance our own understanding of the universe. As they spoke, Holmes Yuna's hybrid mind formulated a plan. They began to interface with the Nexus cannon systems, their consciousness spreading through its network like water, finding cracks in a dam. Vex noticed their actions and moved to stop them, but it was too late. Holmes Yuna had already gained control of the weapon's targeting systems. With a surge of mental energy, they locked it down, preventing any unauthorized firing. "It's over, Counselor," they said softly. "But this doesn't have to be the end. Help us build a future where all our peoples can thrive." The tension in the room was palpable. Vex's supporters looked to him, awaiting his decision. The fate of 3 species hung in the balance, with Holmes Una standing at the center, a living bridge between worlds. As Vex opened his mouth to respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. On the main view screen, a new threat appeared: ships of unknown origin entering Nasat space. The hybrid pair realized that the conspiracy ran deeper than they had imagined, and their challenges were just the beginning. The true test of their newfound abilities, and the strength of the alliance they had forged, was about to unfold. As Holmes Una assessed the situation, their hybrid consciousness rapidly processed the implications of this new threat. They turned to Dr. Zira, their iridescent skin pulsing with urgency. "We need to form a joint task force immediately," they said, their merged voice carrying an undercurrent of persistence. "This goes beyond Counselor Vex. There's a larger conspiracy at play." Dr. Zira nodded, her luminescent patterns flickering with concern. "I'll contact the human and Zorgax representatives. We'll need their full cooperation." Within hours, a diverse team assembled in the Nasat Prime Command Center. Human diplomats, Nasat scientists, and Zorgax military officers gathered around a holographic display, their faces etched with tension. Holmes Una stood at the center, their hybrid form commanding attention. "Our investigation has uncovered a network of resistance cells across all 3 of our species," they announced, their voice steady. "These groups are united by a common fear: the loss of species identity through symbiosis and cooperation." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the room. A human diplomat leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "How widespread is this network?" "More extensive than we initially thought," Holmes Una replied. They gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show a map of known resistance cells. "They've been operating in secret, sabotaging our efforts and spreading anti-cooperation propaganda." A Zorgax commander clicked its mandibles, compound eyes gleaming with interest. "How did you uncover this information?" "We raided a communications hub on a remote moon in the Nasat system," Holmes Una explained. Their hybrid mind replayed the memory of the operation, the tense approach, the swift breach of the facility's defenses, and the moment they accessed the encrypted data cache. "Using our enhanced abilities, we were able to decrypt their transmissions quickly," they continued. "What we found was alarming. The resistance is planning coordinated attacks on key symbiosis research facilities." The room erupted in a flurry of activity as the task force members began formulating response strategies. Holmes Una's gaze fell on a holographic representation of a sprawling research complex. "This is our primary concern," they said, zooming in on the image. "It's a joint human Nasat Zorgax facility where scientists are developing an improved version of the Nexus cannon technology. According to the intelligence we gathered, it's their main target." Dr. Zira stepped forward, her skin patterns pulsing with drive. "We need to mobilize immediately to protect these facilities." Holmes Una nodded in agreement. "We'll lead a team to defend the primary research center. It's crucial we prevent any disruption to the work being done there." As the task force finalized their plans, alarms blared throughout the command center. A Nasat technician's skin flashed urgent patterns as he called out, "We're detecting multiple incoming vessels approaching the research facility." Holmes Una's hybrid form tensed, their enhanced senses already reaching out to analyze the threat. "It's begun," they said, their merged voice carrying a note of grim resolution. "We need to move now." They turned to address the assembled team, their iridescent skins shimmering with intensity. "This is the moment that will define our future, not just as individual species, but as a united front. Are you with us?" The room filled with a chorus of affirmations, human voices, Nasat skin patterns, and Zorgax clicks, all signaling their commitment to the cause. As they boarded a high-speed transport to the research facility, Holmes Una felt their hybrid physiology humming with energy. Their merged consciousness processed tactical data, formulated defense strategies, and coordinated with the incoming support teams. The transport shot through the atmosphere, its advanced engines pushing the limits of speed. Through the viewport, Holmes Una could see the research facility coming into view, and the ominous shapes of enemy ships descending upon it. Prepare for immediate engagement, they communicated to their team, their mental link allowing for instantaneous coordination. Remember, our primary objective is to protect the facility and its research. Use non-lethal force whenever possible. These are our own people, misguided as they may be. As the transport touched down, Holmes Una's enhanced senses immediately detected the chaos unfolding around them. The air crackled with weapons fire, and the ground trembled with the impact of explosions. They emerged from the transport, their hybrid form moving with fluid grace. In an instant, they assessed the battlefield. Resistance forces had breached the facility's outer defenses and were pushing towards the central research labs. Holmes Una's team fanned out, engaging the attackers with precision and efficiency. The hybrid pair themselves became a blur of motion, their enhanced speed and strength allowing them to incapacitate multiple opponents in rapid succession. As they fought their way towards the heart of the facility, Holmes Una's merged mind processed the tactical situation. They realized that the resistance forces were more numerous and better equipped than anticipated. This wasn't just a radical fringe group, they had significant support and resources. Pushing through a damaged security door, Holmes Una found themselves face-to-face with a group of resistance leaders, a human military officer, a Nasat scientist, and a Zorg subcommander. The sight of representatives from all three species working together against symbiosis struck them as tragically ironic. "Stand down," Holmes Una called out, their merged voice resonating with authority. "This conflict will only lead to our mutual destruction." The human officer raised his weapon, his face twisted with disgust. "You're an abomination," he spat, "a threat to the purity of all our races." Holmes Una's hybrid mind raced, searching for a way to de-escalate the situation. But before they could respond, a new alarm blared throughout the facility. A computerized voice echoed through the corridors. "Warning! Unknown energy signature detected. Temporal anomaly forming in Sector 7. The resistance leaders exchanged looks of panic. The Nasat scientist's skin flashed patterns of fear and confusion. "That's not part of our plan," she chittered. "What's happening?" Holmes Una's enhanced senses picked up a surge of strange energy emanating from the direction of the main research lab. Their hybrid consciousness processed the readings, recognizing elements that didn't match any known technology. As they stood at this crossroads, facing down the resistance leaders while an unknown threat loomed, Holmes Una realized that the situation had escalated far beyond their initial expectations. The true nature of the conspiracy they had uncovered was about to reveal itself, and the fate of 3 species hung in the balance. The unknown energy signature pulsed through the facility, sending ripples of unease through both Holmes Una and the resistance leaders. For a moment, their standoff was forgotten as they all turned towards the source of the disturbance. "We need to investigate this," Holmes Una said, their hybrid mind already processing potential scenarios. "Whatever it is, it could pose a greater threat than our current conflict." The human officer hesitated, his weapon still raised. "How do we know this isn't some trick?" Before Holmes Una could respond, the facility shook violently. The resistance leaders stumbled, and Holmes Una used their enhanced reflexes to maintain balance. "We don't have time for distrust," they urged. "If we don't act now, we might lose everything we're fighting to protect." The Nasat scientist's skin flashed patterns of agreement. "They're right. This energy signature, it's unlike anything I've ever seen." Reluctantly, the resistance leaders lowered their weapons. The Zorg subcommander clicked its mandibles nervously. "Lead the way," it said to Holmes Una. As they rushed towards Sector 7, alarms blared throughout the facility. Emergency protocols activated, sealing off sections and initiating evacuation procedures. Holmes Una's hybrid senses detected a surge of panic from the facility's personnel. They reached the main research lab, the source of the energy signature. The doors were sealed shut, emergency lights flashing above them. Holmes Una interfaced with the security system, their consciousness spreading through the network. "Something's blocking access," they reported, their brow furrowing with concentration. "It's adaptive, like it's learning from my attempts to bypass it. The Nasat scientist stepped forward, her skin pulsing with willpower. Let me try. I know this system inside and out. As she worked on the door controls, Holmes Yuna's enhanced hearing picked up a faint sound from within the lab. It was unlike anything they had ever heard before, a high-pitched whine that seemed to fluctuate in and out of normal space-time. Suddenly, the door slid open with a hiss. The group rushed inside, only to stop short at the sight before them. In the center of the lab, a swirling vortex of energy pulsed and writhed. It was a kaleidoscope of colors, some of which Holmes Yuna's hybrid eyes couldn't even process. Arcs of lightning crackled around its edges, scorching the nearby equipment. By the three suns, the Nasat scientist whispered, her skin patterns flashing with awe and fear. The human officer raised his weapon instinctively. What is that thing? Holmes Yuna stepped closer, their hybrid senses reaching out to analyze the phenomenon. It's a temporal anomaly, a rift in space-time. As they watched, the vortex expanded suddenly, engulfing a nearby console. The machine vanished in a flash of light, leaving no trace behind. We need to contain this, Holmes Yuna said urgently. If it continues to grow, it could consume the entire facility, maybe even beyond. The Zorgak's sub-commander chittered nervously. How? We don't have the technology to control something like this. Holmes Yuna's hybrid mind raced, processing information at an incredible speed. They turned to the assembled group, their eyes glowing with intensity. We do have the technology, they said. The Nexus cannon. If we can modify it to emit a focused temporal field, we might be able to stabilize the rift. The human officer shook his head. That's insane. The Nexus cannon isn't designed for anything like that. No, the Nasat scientist interjected, her skin flashing with realization. They're right. The principles are similar. We'd need to recalibrate the energy matrix, but it's possible. As they debated, the vortex pulsed again, growing larger. Alarms blared with renewed urgency. We don't have time to argue, Holmes Yuna said firmly. This is our only chance. We need to work together. The resistance leaders exchanged glances, then nodded reluctantly. The human officer spoke for the group. What do you need us to do? Holmes Yuna quickly outlined a plan, their hybrid mind coordinating the complex sequence of actions needed. The Nasat scientist and Zorgak sub-commander rushed to modify the Nexus cannon systems, while the human officer coordinated with facility security to clear the area. As the others worked, Holmes Yuna approached the temporal rift. They could feel its energy pulling at them, trying to unravel their very atoms. Their hybrid physiology strained to adapt, to resist the otherworldly forces at play. Holmes Yuna to Dr. Zira, they called over the comms. We need you in the main research lab immediately. Bring any data you have on large-scale symbiotic linking. As they waited for a response, Holmes Yuna's gaze remained fixed on the swirling vortex. They couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a random anomaly. Something was coming through, something that would change everything they thought they knew about their universe and the power of symbiosis. The rift pulsed again, growing larger still. Holmes Yuna braced themselves, knowing that whatever emerged from this temporal tear would require every ounce of their hybrid abilities and the united strength of all three species to face.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.